Welcome to Community Radio Networks. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a lovely Friday, the 29th of March, and our thoughts today with those who are commemorating Good Friday and getting ready for Easter this weekend. And we here getting you ready to take on the day today with all the information that you need. And we will start with the world news coming up first. This is Community Radio Networks, the world news read by Shabna Madgil. The largest crane on the eastern seaboard has been transported to Baltimore this morning and can begin removing the wreckage of a collapsed highway bridge that has halted a search for 4 workers still missing days after the disaster and blocked the city's vital port from operating. Maryland's governor said the crane, arrived by barge and can lift up to 1,000 tons, will be one of at least 2 used to clear the channel of the twisted metal and concrete remains of the Francis Scott Key Bridge and the cargo ship that hit this week. The best minds in the world are working on the plans for this removal. And details from the moments leading up to this devastating collapse were discovered in the cargo ship's black box voyage data recorder as the pilot tried to alert authorities to the oncoming disaster. The Dali, the 984-foot Singapore-flagged vessel, reportedly lost power while transitioning out of Baltimore Harbor and struck the bridge on Tuesday morning. The 22-member crew has remained on board since the crash. No one on the ship was injured. 8 construction workers were fixing potholes on the bridge when it collapsed. 2 of them survived and the others presumed dead. 2 bodies have been found. Maryland's governor has warned of a very long road ahead to recover from this loss of Baltimore's Francis Scott Key Bridge as the Biden administration approved $60 million in immediate federal aid after this deadly collapse. Sam Bankman-Fried has been sentenced to 25 years in federal prison for defrauding customers and investors in his failed crypto exchange FTX, according to a Manhattan court yesterday. Before announcing the sentence, the judge, Lewis Kaplan, said there was a risk that this man will be in a position to do something very bad in the future, and it's not a trivial risk. He agreed with prosecutors' claim that Bankman-Fried wanted to be a hugely political influential person in the country, and that this propelled his financial crimes. Sentenced to 25 years, about half of what prosecutors had asked for, but still puts him at the high end for sentence length in prominent white-collar fraud cases. Ahead of him is Bernard Madoff, who was sentenced to 150 years behind bars for the $20 billion Ponzi scheme that he led. He died around 12 years into his sentence. And Theranos founder, the CEO Elizabeth Holmes, who was convicted on 4 charges of defrauding investors while running the failed blood testing startup Theranos, was sentenced to a little over 11 years. Dengue cases in the Americas up 3 times higher in January through March compared to the same period last year. And the news comes as Puerto Rico issued a public health emergency this week over the mosquito-borne illness infecting 100 million to 400 million people annually. A federal government plan for hunters to kill thousands of invasive owls to protect the rapidly declining northern spotted owl has ruffled the feathers of dozens of animal advocacy groups. A coalition of 75 animal rights and wildlife protection organizations sent a letter to the U.S. Interior Secretary asking her to scrap what they described as a reckless plan to wipe out 500,000 barred owls in West Coast states over the next 3 decades. The teenager suspected in that massive head-on crash that killed 6 in Johnson County in North Texas, has been arrested. It was 18-year-old Luke Riseca who appeared before a magistrate yesterday after he turned himself in on 6 counts of intoxication manslaughter, 2 counts of intoxication assault, and 2 drug charges. The fatal crash happened in December of last year, and an investigation by the Texas State Troopers says a white Chevrolet Silverado pickup truck driven by him was heading south, just south of Cleburne on Highway 67. Troopers believe the truck crossed over into the northbound lane in a no-passing area and struck a van carrying 7 people head-on. 6 were killed and 3 others injured as a result of the crash between the 2 vehicles. he has been out on bond on home confinement and has an ankle monitor as part of his bond conditions. 6 of the 7 people in the van died, including 2 children, a 9-year-old girl and a 10-year-old, a 36-year-old woman, a 60-year-old woman, and a 64-year-old man also killed in that crash, and they were all from India. The van was driven by 28-year-old Rushil Bari of Irving, who was also killed. John Anaheim ended the season opener for the World Series champion Texas Rangers with the 10th inning RBI single after not finishing a play on a disputed foul tip that had given the Chicago Cubs the lead. He made up for his miscue with a 2-out liner that lifted Texas to a 4-3 win yesterday night after the Rangers unfurled the franchise's first World Series championship banner before the dramatic victory. Gang violence in Haiti has killed over 1,500 people so far this year, including many children, while dozens have been lynched, stoned, or burned alive by so-called self-defense brigades. This according to the UN Human Rights Office in Geneva. Haiti's shattering gang wars have intensified in recent weeks, with heavily armed rivals unleashing fresh waves of attacks, including raids on police stations and the international airport. And Prime Minister Ariel Henry announced his resignation on the 11th of this month. Relatives of the victims of Brazil's brutal 2-decade dictatorship have voiced anger and dismay over President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva's reported decision to block official remembrance events marking the 60th anniversary of the 1964 military coup. Activists had hoped the leftist government would mark the 31st of March this year, that anniversary of that power grab, with a series of memorials honoring the thousands who were killed, disappeared, or tortured. And Human Rights Minister planning this ceremony and an awareness campaign with the slogan, "Without remembrance, there is no future." Venezuelan migrants often have a quick answer when asked to name the most difficult stretch of their 8-country journey to the U.S. border. And it's not the days-long jungle trek through Colombia and Panama with its venomous vipers, giant spiders, and scorpions. It's Mexico. In the jungle, you have to prepare for animals. In Mexico, you have to prepare for humans. Mexico's crackdown on immigration in recent months, at the urging of the Biden administration, has hit Venezuelans especially hard. The development highlights how much the U.S. depends on Mexico to control migration, which has reached unprecedented levels and is a top issue for voters as President Biden seeks re-election. The U.S. House of Representatives will send articles of impeachment against President Joe Biden's immigration chief to the Senate on the 10th of April, according to Republican Speaker Mike Johnson, sparking a trial that would likely begin the following day. House Republicans blame Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas, a Democrat, for a surge in illegal entries from Mexico that they have called a humanitarian catastrophe. They impeached him in February, the culmination of months of attacks on the Democratic administration as they seek to make border security a key issue in the November elections. Hosting rapper Fat Joe at the White House to talk about reforming marijuana laws, visiting an abortion clinic, calling for a ceasefire in Gaza at the historic Selma Bridge in Alabama, walking the blood-stained crime scene of the Parkland, Florida school shooting. U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris has stepped up out of the shadow of President Biden in recent weeks as part of a high-profile effort to persuade the fractious coalition of voters who sent them to the White House to give them a second term. Her evolving role comes as progressive Democrats target Biden over his pro-Israel stance, and polls show him in a tight race against Republican rival Donald Trump. Former President Trump's campaign is seeking to outrace President Biden next week, aiming to take in more than $33 million to top a new single-event fundraising record set by Biden yesterday with $25 million. And that, of course, by the invitation of Trump inviting wealthy donors to Palm Beach, Florida, home to his Mar-a-Lago estate, for an April 6th fundraiser hosted by New York hedge fund billionaire John Paulson, and listing as co-chairs other high-dollar donors such as Las Vegas-based businessman Robert Bigelow, casino mogul Steve Wynn, and New York grocery billionaire John Katsimatidis. Barack Obama, Bill Clinton, and some big names from the entertainment world teamed up last night to deliver a rousing New York embrace of President Biden that hauled in a record-setting $26 million plus for his re-election campaign. The mood at Radio City Music Hall was electric as Obama praised Biden's willingness to look for common ground and said, "That's the kind of president I want." Clinton said simply of the choices facing voters, "Stay with what works." And the eye-popping fundraising haul was a major show of Democratic support for Biden at a time of persistently low poll numbers. And during the nearly hour-long conversation, Obama and Clinton explained just how hard Biden's job is. The sold-out Radio City Music Hall event was a gilded exclamation mark on a recent burst of campaign travel by Biden, who has visited several political battlegrounds in the 3 weeks since his State of the Union address served as a rallying cry for his re-election bid. And yesterday's event brought together more than 3 decades of Democratic leadership. The music hall's marquee advertised the big dollar night as an evening with Joe Biden, Barack Obama, Bill Clinton. The protesters were angry at Biden's handling of the war in Gaza, and strong support of Israel briefly disrupted the show, drawing a pledge from Biden to keep working to stop civilian deaths, particularly of children. But he added Israel's existence is at stake, and hundreds more protested outside in the drizzling rain, many demanding a ceasefire and waving Palestinian flags. President Biden and his Democratic predecessors headlining this star-studded fundraiser, but did have that interruption. The White House has called on Israel and Lebanon to put a high priority on restoring calm after new deadly border crossfire and Israeli strikes targeting the Hezbollah. The world's top court has ordered Israel to ensure urgent humanitarian assistance in Gaza without delay, saying famine has set in. It is at the International Court of Justice that South Africa has charged that Israel is perpetrating a genocide in Gaza, an accusation strongly denied by Israel. Pretoria has dragged Israel before the court, saying it was in breach of its obligations under the 1948 UN Genocide Convention and urging the court to order a ceasefire. And the top UN court has yesterday ordered Israel to take measures to improve the humanitarian situation in Gaza. Israeli strikes on the northern Syrian city of Aleppo earlier today have killed 38 people, including 5 members of the Lebanese armed group Hezbollah. The Palestinian Authority has announced the formation of a new cabinet as it faces international pressure to reform. President Mahmoud Abbas, who has led the Palestinian Authority for nearly 2 decades and remains in overall control, announced the new government in a presidential decree. None of the incoming ministers is a well-known figure. The Israeli Supreme Court ordered the government to stop funding religious schools whose students defy the country's mandatory military service, posing one of the most serious threats to date for Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's governing coalition. And the Lebanese militant group Hezbollah has fired rockets with heavy warheads at towns in northern Israel, saying it used the weapons against civilian targets for the first time yesterday in retaliation for Israeli airstrikes the night before that killed 9, including what the group said were several paramedics. And we do have thousands of Jordanians rallying near the Israeli embassy in a 5th day of large protests against Israel. Japan, meanwhile, preparing to resume funding to the UN's crisis-hit Palestinian Refugee Agency, which coordinates nearly all aid to Gaza. Dozens of worshippers died after a bus headed to an Easter conference crashed in South Africa's Limpopo province, the latest tragedy in a country where recent road accidents have led to multiple casualties. The crash claimed the lives of 45 people, and the sole survivor, an 8-year-old girl, was airlifted to the hospital with serious injuries. The crash happened in a mountain pass, and the bus reportedly caught fire after plunging through barriers and off a bridge. The cause of the crash is under investigation. Officials have only managed to retrieve 12 bodies from the crash site so far. And former President Jacob Zuma has been barred from running in South Africa's general election in May. He also was involved in a car crash but was unhurt. A drunk driver collided with his official armored state vehicle last evening. France has asked its foreign allies to send several thousand members of their security forces to help guard the Paris Olympics, underlining the strains caused by sporting extravaganza which begins in July. And the World Football governing body FIFA and its European counterpart UEFA have written to the Spanish Football Federation requesting a detailed update after arrests were made in a corruption probe last week in Spain. The Russian mercenary group known as Wagner is helping government forces in central and northern Mali carry out raids and drone strikes that have killed scores of civilians, including many children. Rights groups have reported this. Mali, along with its neighbors Burkina Faso and Niger, has for over a decade battled an insurgency fought by jihadi groups, including some allied with Al-Qaeda and the Islamic State group. Moscow launched a large-scale attack on Ukraine's energy infrastructure today with a mass barrage of 99 drones and missiles hitting regions across the country. Air raid warnings rang out across the country, with 10 Ukrainian regions coming under fire. Russian state media employees instructed to publish footage of the Crocus City Hall terrorist suspects being tortured as a prevention measure. Graphic images of Russian authorities torturing the suspects began circulating soon after their arrest. And today marks a year since Wall Street Journal reporter Ivan Gershkovich was detained by Russian security forces on spying allegations, the first such detention of an American journalist on espionage charges in Russia since the latter days of the Cold War. And Russia vetoed a UN resolution that would renew an independent panel of experts investigating North Korea's violations of Security Council sanctions at a time when Pyongyang has become a key supplier of munitions for Moscow's war against Ukraine. Russia vetoed the resolution on North Korea's sanction monitoring. Upset with Russia's decision, the U.S. hit out at Russia and alleged that the Russian Federation is trying to silence independent, objective probes. The Philippines clapped back at China following an aggressive confrontation in the South China Sea in an incident that involved the employment of water cannons by China's Coast Guard, telling Beijing that Filipinos do not yield. A Filipino villager has been nailed to a wooden cross for the 35th time to reenact Jesus Christ's suffering in a brutal Good Friday tradition that he said he would devote to pray for peace in Ukraine, Gaza, and the disputed South China Sea. Over 100 people watched on as 10 devotees were nailed to wooden crosses, and the real-life crucifixions have become an annual religious spectacle that draws tourists in 3 rural communities north of Manila. Best Picture winner Oppenheimer finally premiered in Japan today, 8 months after a controversial grassroots marketing push and concerns about how its nuclear theme would be received in the only country to suffer atomic bombing. The biggest winner at this month's Academy Awards, the film directed by Christopher Nolan about U.S. physicist J. Robert Oppenheimer, who led the race to develop the atomic bomb, has grossed nearly $1 billion globally. 54 cases of anthrax have been reported in Laos and Thailand, which shares a border with it. The Thai authorities have been working closely with those in Laos after receiving reports of the outbreak and have prepared vaccines in case of the infections being detected in Thailand. India plans to build a £2.9 billion fence along its border with Myanmar to crack down on smuggling and prevent refugees fleeing the civil war there from crossing into its northern territories. The move to fence the porous 1,000-mile-long border involves the 4 northeastern Indian states of Arunachal Pradesh, Nagaland, Manipur, and Mizoram. A government committee earlier this month approved the cost for the fencing, which needs to be approved by Prime Minister Modi's cabinet. And Arvind Kejriwal's wife, Sunita Kejriwal, launched a WhatsApp campaign, Kejriwal to Ashirwad, for Delhi's chief minister. In a digital media briefing, she said her husband has challenged the most corrupt and dictatorial forces in the country and asked people to support him through their blessings as well as prayers. Multiple layers of barricades have been set up and a large number of police personnel deployed on roads leading to the BJP headquarters in anticipation of the India Bloc's protests against the arrest of Aam Aadmi Party convener and Delhi Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal. And it is the Mahagathbandhan that was announced, the seat-sharing agreement in Bihar with the RJD, the coalition's largest member, slating to nominate candidates for 26 seats, and Congress will nominate its candidates for 9 seats, while the CPIM will contest 3, and CPI and CPIM will each contest 1 seat. This is the Mahagathbandhan announcement of the Lok Sabha seats sharing for Bihar. Actor turned politician and BJP candidate from Himachal Pradesh, Kangana Ranaut, today held a roadshow in the Mandi constituency. And the Election Commission today said that the effectiveness of its C-Vigil mobile application in enabling citizens to report violations of the poll code. Since the announcement of the Lok Sabha elections, the Election Commission has received over 79,000 complaints, with more than 99% of them resolved. Victory in their respective previous games might have eased the initial nerves, but imperfections remain. Hence, Royal Challengers Bengaluru and the Kolkata Knight Riders will eye a quick course correction to add steam to their campaign in an IPL 2024 match today. The Royal Challengers defeated the Punjab Kings by 4 wickets, while the Knight Riders elbowed out the Sunrisers Hyderabad by 4 runs to garner some early points. Sharfadullah ibn Shahid has said it was a great honor to be named the first Bangladeshi to join the International Cricket Council's elite panel of umpires. The 47-year-old, who last year became the first umpire from Bangladesh to take charge of a world match, had been on the international panel since 2006. And despite trailing Jordan 2-0, Pakistan had finished the first half at the Amman International Stadium strongly, but then came the meltdown. The character and determination showed by Pakistan 5 days earlier against the same opponents dissipating by the minute as Stephen Constantine's men went on to concede 5 unanswered goals against their host to suffer their heaviest loss so far in the 2026 FIFA World Cup qualifying campaign earlier this week. And Pakistan and Afghanistan have reached certain agreements during trade talks in Kabul, including beginning negotiations on a revised transit trade agreement and implementing a temporary admission document for trade vehicle drivers. In an apparent bid to avoid a retrial in the Cypher case, the Council for former Prime Minister Imran Khan and Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi endorsed the cross-examination of key witnesses by state-appointed counsels. And 8 suspects allegedly involved in the May 9th violence were detained immediately after being released from the Adiala jail last night. Ladies and gentlemen, that's all I have in the financial news. In the world news for you. I do have the financial news, and that's coming up for you next. Just give me 1 more minute and we'll get that to you.
Association.
We'll start the financial news for today with the foreign currency exchange rates. We have the Indian rupee at 83.33, Pakistani rupee at 277.95, Bangladeshi taka at 109.74, the Sri Lankan rupee at 300.44, Nepalese rupee 133.38, the British pound is at 0.79 and the euro at 0.93, the Canadian dollar 1.35 and the Australian dollar 1.53, Mexican peso 16.56, Chinese yuan 7.22, Japanese yen 151.26. Japan's top currency official has said that the recent yen weakness is odd and out of line with current economic fundamentals, reaffirming his commitment to act if needed to prevent excessive swings in the exchange rate of the yen. The Russian ruble at 91.39, the Thai baht at 36.34 and the Turkish lira at 32.39. After a stellar start to the year for stocks, investors are on guard for potential bumps in the second quarter as they gauge whether the Federal Reserve delivers on an unexpected interest rate cut by June and turn their focus on the health of upcoming earnings. The S&P 500 ended the first quarter with a gain of more than 10%, its largest first quarter advance since the nearly 13.1% jump in the first quarter of 2019. And while the so-called Magnificent Seven stocks such as chipmaker Nvidia and Facebook, parent Meta platforms, provided the bulk of the gains for the quarter, economically sensitive sectors such as energy and industrials have rallied over the past 6 weeks. Home prices are up 42% since 2020, but because both rates and borrowing costs have skyrocketed, you need to earn 80% more to comfortably afford a home in today's market. Median incomes have risen just 23% over the past 4 years, leaving many people out of the running for home ownership. The wealth of the top 1% hit a record $44.6 trillion at the end of the fourth quarter as an end-of-year stock rally lifted their portfolios. And the total net worth of the top 1%, defined by the Fed as those with wealth over $11 million, increased by $2 trillion in the fourth quarter. New government data shows corporate profits rose to an all-time high at the end of last year, providing new ammunition for Democrats who want to refocus voter anger about price increases towards Wall Street. The broadest measure released yesterday by the Commerce Department found corporate profits rose $133.5 billion in the fourth quarter to an annualized rate of more than $3.4 trillion for the first time ever. And it is Visa, Inc. and MasterCard, Inc. that have agreed to cap credit card swipe fees, a deal that U.S. merchants say will save them at least $30 billion over 5 years in one of the most significant antitrust settlements ever, following a legal fight that spanned almost 2 decades. This week, former President Trump's social media company began trading on Wall Street, and investors have been quick to buy and sell, with prices fluctuating but closing up 16% on its first day. Trump Media and Technology Group, the company that operates Truth Social, shot up by over 50% on Tuesday, and the stock's first day on the market hitting as high as $77 a share. And during its second day, the stock stayed more stagnant, sitting around $66 a share, still up from its opening. So overall, the stock has risen more than 230% since the beginning of the year in anticipation of Trump's company merging with SPAC Digital World Acquisition Corp. and going public. Disney activist investor Nelson Peltz has fought for a board shakeup at the company for months. Investors will soon find out if he won. The results of a shareholder vote to select board members are expected to be announced at the entertainment giant's annual stockholders meeting next week, although it's possible a last-minute deal between the two sides could emerge before them and then voting officially closes the day of the meeting. Superstar singer-songwriter Beyoncé has released her country-centric 8th studio album, Cowboy Carter, at midnight, and the second in an album trilogy after 2022's Renaissance. The release follows the success of single Texas Hold'em, which became the first track by a black woman to top Billboard's country music chart last month. Beyoncé's adoption of country music styles comes amid a broader surge in popularity in that genre, which has grown rapidly with the use of music streaming services. And last year, country music streams grew 23%, driven primarily by Gen Z and millennials eschewing genre classification and led by musicians like Morgan Wallen and Luke Combs. And major acts Post Malone and Lana Del Rey have also announced country albums in recent months. More than 2 decades after it was shuttered by Time Inc. Life magazine may be revived. Bedford Media, the holding company, founded by model and entrepreneur Carly Kloss and her husband, investor Josh Kushner, has acquired the publishing rights to Life. Bedford says that Life will be relaunched as a print magazine with a vibrant digital and video presence. And of course, you all remember that Life was first published way back in 1883. And in 1936, it was acquired by Time founder Henry Luce, who gave it a new editorial focus built around using photographs to tell stories of the news of the week. But Time Inc. shuttered Life magazine in the year 2000, citing its general interest focus. The prop that has sparked countless hours of debate was sold at an auction last week, allowing someone the chance to see if Jack and Rose from Titanic could have both survived their freezing night in the Atlantic. The prop in question was featured in the iconic ending of James Cameron's 1997 blockbuster and was sold at an auction last week for $718,750. But the auction house also set the record straight, noting that the prop that's long been called a door isn't even a door. It's a carved piece of wood based on an actual piece of debris that was salvaged from the Titanic. Alamo Drafthouse, the Texas-based theater chain that's popular for its in-theater dining and fan-forward approach to movie-going, is exploring a sale. Several Hollywood studios approached to assess their interest in buying the company. It's unclear if the talks are ongoing or how close the company is to a potential acquisition. And a representative for Alamo Drafthouse Cinemas has declined to comment. The company had filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy in early 2021 as theater chains were struggling to rebound from prolonged COVID-related closures and a lack of new products. It did emerge in June of 21 after completing a sale to Altamont Capital Partners with funds managed by affiliates of Fortress Investment Group and Alamo Drafthouse founder Tim League. The Cotton Bowl Stadium at Fair Park, built in 1930, and like most things that are nearly 100 years old, it needs some work. The $140 million facelift that started yesterday, expected to be finished by the start of the 2025 State Fair of Texas. Officials say the upgrades are designed to enhance the visitor's experience and will include 14 new escalators, new premium seating, and larger concourses. As for this year's State Fair and the Texas OU game, they will go on as scheduled at the Cotton Bowl. Renovations are being done in stages to accommodate some historic events. 7 years after the city approved the plans, Dallas has finally started construction on a new skateboarding park. The new skate park is being built at the Bachman Lake Park, nearly 46,000 square foot concrete in-ground skate park, professionally designed, and there will be a street area, plaza, and a bowl and snake run, something for all level of skaters. It's a $3.9 million project that will also include seats for spectators, restrooms, bike racks, and water fountains. Should be finished by the end of the year. And city leaders hope that this new park will help bring the sport back to Bachman Lake, where it was very, very popular in the 80s, even drawing skateboard legend Tony Hawk to check out the famed clown ramp. The city of Mesquite says last year was a big year for economic development. Mesquite's mayor says 9 companies expanded in the city last year, creating 2,800 jobs, and 2 of the expansions belong to companies that opened their first U.S. facilities, Canadian Solar and Norway's Hexagon Purus. And also included in a report released this week was an announcement by aerospace and defense giant General Dynamics, who will open a new ordnance and tactical systems facility in Mesquite. Several other large U.S. companies have moved into the North Texas city, including Lowe's, Masonite, Coleman Power Sports, and RJW Logistics. The McKinney ISD is shifting the attendance zones at 3 campuses to prepare for tremendous growth. With at least 50 housing subdivisions either under construction or in the planning stages, the McKinney Board of Trustees approved this plan to shift some incoming students from the Frazier Elementary School to Press Elementary School, from Johnson Middle School to the Cockrell Middle School, and from Boyd High School to North High School. Even folks across the pond understand that Funky Town is the best city in Texas. The Times of London recently declared Fort Worth as the coolest city in Texas. And the article's author, Jonathan Thompson, even declared Fort Worth the new Austin, thanks to its buoyant TV and film industry, a blossoming restaurant and bar scene, and reliably sunny weather, not to mention a lack of state income tax. Despite tech and automakers wanting to take a jump into the future with autonomous cars, a new survey from AAA has found that a majority of Americans are afraid of the technology. It asked 1,200 U.S. adults their thoughts on self-driving cars, and more than 66% reported feeling some fear about them, while 25% were uncertain. Elon Musk's artificial intelligence startup xAI's latest Grok 1.4 chatbot will be available on his social media platform X next week. Grok 2 should exceed current AI on all metrics in training now. And Chinese consumer tech giant Xiaomi launched its first electric vehicle in Beijing, injecting itself into a fiercely competitive sector in the world's largest car maker. China's EV sector has grown rapidly in recent years, propelled by purchasing subsidies that were discontinued in late 22. And the dozens of domestic automakers are engaged in a stiff price war to get ahead in a crowded market. And he was called China's answer to Steve Jobs for taking Xiaomi from scrappy startup to an electronics giant known for its smartphones. And with the launch of a much-hyped and against-the-odds electric car, Li Zhen, Xiaomi's co-founder and CEO, is taking on Elon Musk with a strategy that takes a page from Tesla's playbook. The 59-year-old took the stage in Beijing yesterday to unveil Xiaomi's SU7 car, a project 3 years in the making that has attracted a lot of attention, but which he has warned investors will lose money. And during yesterday's 2-hour event, a live stream, millions of Chinese tuned in to watch. He made a jibe at Apple for dropping its car project and declared Xiaomi's EV superior to Tesla's Model 3. And fans have dubbed the Xiaomi CEO Thor on social media, a play on his surname, which means thunder in Chinese. And some commented that his outfit, a gray blazer over a black t-shirt, looks like something Musk would wear. French carmaker Renault plans to invest 300 million euros in its assembly plant located in Saint-Deville in northern France to make new generation electric vans from 2026. And it is Dieter Zetsche, the iconic chairman of the board of management of Daimler AG and head of Mercedes-Benz, who officially retired in 2019. And as he bade farewell to his illustrious career, fellow German automaker and rival BMW decided to honor him in a unique and unexpected way. It's a heartwarming yet very humorous video titled "Retirement is About Exploring Your Wide-Open Future," said BMW, recreating Dieter Zetsche's last day at the Stuttgart headquarters. Turkey's flagship carrier, Turkish Airlines, has resumed flights to Libya's capital 10 years after they were suspended over security concerns in the conflict-torn country. And a ceremony was held at the Mitiga International Airport yesterday to mark its first flight to Libya since 2015. Swiss agrochemicals and seeds group Syngenta has withdrawn its application to list on the Shanghai Stock Exchange. The IPO would have valued the Sinochem-owned company at about $60 billion and has been postponed repeatedly since being proposed in 2021 due to unfavorable market conditions. Huawei Technologies company sustained its run of strong quarterly profit growth, building on the resurgence of its consumer business against Apple Inc.'s iPhone and the rise of its cloud division against incumbent Alibaba Group Holding Limited. The Chinese networking and electronics leader reported net profit about 13.9 billion yuan, which is $1.9 billion in the December quarter. And one of China's biggest property firms delayed its earnings report, while another posted a record profit decline as the nation's real estate crisis shows no signs of easing. Country Garden Holdings Company, once the nation's top residential builder by sales, made a surprise announcement late yesterday that it'll miss a deadline for reporting annual results, saying it needs more information. And China Vanke Company, at one time the largest listed developer, said net profit tumbled 46% last year, the biggest drop since its 1991 listing. Shares in Asia rose gains on Wall Street, with focus shifting to key U.S. consumer price data that is due later today. Benchmarks in Japan, South Korea, and mainland China showed modest increases after U.S. stocks wrapped up the first quarter on a positive note. And Vietnam's economy has slowed in the first quarter, weighed by an uneven growth in exports and factory output, as well as tepid consumption activity. GDP rose an annualized 5.66% in the January to March period after gaining 6.72% in the previous quarter. And Thailand took the first step towards legalizing casinos as the government looks to attract high-spending tourists to support Southeast Asia's second-largest economy, which also checking revenue leak from illegal gambling. The nation's 500-member House of Representatives voted in favor of a study by a panel of lawmakers to allow casinos to be housed within large entertainment complexes. A total of 253 out of the 257 lawmakers present there voted in favor of that plan. Prime Minister Modi and Microsoft co-founder Bill Gates engaged in a compelling discussion covering a range of critical issues from artificial intelligence to climate change mitigation and women's empowerment. The leaders offered insights into the convergence of technology, sustainability, and social empowerment on the global stage as Bill Gates lauded India's technological advancements, highlighting the nation's pivotal role in AI innovation. Foreign investors made a strong comeback by infusing over 2 lakh crore rupees into equities in the fiscal year 23-24. And in an impressive display of resilience, the S&P 500 and the Dow Jones Industrial Average soared to new heights in New York, marking a significant prelude to the Easter holiday break. And this rally not only set new records, but also signaled the best start to the year for the S&P 500 since the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic. The government e-market portal with increased buying activities in India has surpassed 4 lakh crore rupees in procurement of goods and services in the current fiscal year. And Adani Green Energy has officially started operating its 775 megawatt solar power projects in Khavda in Gujarat after receiving the necessary clearances. Baiju Ravindran, the founder of the troubled ed-tech giant Baiju's, has reached out to disgruntled investors in a bid to reconcile, announcing a board consideration of an offer on renounced shares. To enhance regional connectivity and bolster tourism prospects, Eastern Railway is doubling down on efforts to complete the Tarakeshwar-Bishnupur new railway line project. And this ambitious initiative aims to link the culturally rich heritage site of Bishnupur's terracotta temples with the revered Lord Shiva temple at Tarakeshwar, promising a transformative impact on the region's landscape. In India, higher educated young people are more likely to be unemployed than those without any schooling. This according to the International Labour Organization. The jobless rate for graduates was 29.1%, almost 9 times higher than the 3.4% for those who can't read or write, according to a new ILO report on India's labour market. It is the movie called Crew that is releasing today, and Crew featuring Tabu, Kareena Kapoor Khan and Kriti Sanon in lead roles to play the role of air hostesses alongside Diljit Dosanjh and Kapil Sharma. And the heist comedy drama is directed by Rajesh Krishnan, narrating the journey of 3 close friends who work together as cabin crew for Kohinoor Airlines, and their life takes an unexpected turn when they are caught in a challenging situation. Crew also stars Rajesh Sharma and Saswata Chatterjee in pivotal roles and features a remix of Subhash Ghai's Khalnayak song Choli Ke Piche Kya Hai, starring Madhuri Dixit and Neena Gupta. Crew has managed to be the movie that is releasing in India today. And at the box office, it faces competition from Hollywood film Godzilla and X Kong, The New Empire. We have, in an unexpected response to escalating security concerns, that Chinese contractors have paused construction on the Dasu and Daimer Bhasha dam projects in Pakistan. This decision came after that tragic incident this week where a suicide bomber targeted a vehicle carrying Chinese engineers and a Pakistani driver, resulting in 6 fatalities. The halted project spotlight the risks faced by approximately 1,250 Chinese nationals employed in these ventures. And Pakistan and Afghanistan reached certain agreements during trade talks in Kabul, including beginning negotiations on a revised transit trade agreement and implementing a temporary admission document for trade vehicle drivers. Finance Minister expressing hope today for reaching a staff-level agreement with the International Monetary Fund by the end of the fiscal year, which is the 30th of June. And foreign exchange reserves of the State Bank of Pakistan increased by $4 million during a week, while the Pakistani rupee appreciated against the US dollar, reflecting a positive sign of stability for the exchange rate. Pakistan's GDP witnessed a meager expansion of 1% in the second quarter of 23-24. And the Commerce Minister Jam Kamal Khan approved a strategy to promote e-commerce, chairing an in-house briefing to review the burgeoning potential of e-commerce. The minister emphasized its elevation and solicited proposals for mass awareness. That's all I have in the financial news for you. I do have one final segment of the program coming up with lots of information. Stay tuned for that right here on Community Radio Networks. This, ladies and gentlemen, is the final segment of our program today. And today is Friday, the 29th of March. And our thoughts with those who are observing Good Friday today and getting ready for the Easter weekend. A lot of wind today through the weekend, a rapid warm-up, scattered strong storms late Monday, and then windy and cooler for Tuesday and Wednesday. But not touching the cloud and rain forecast yet. We have a beautiful Easter weekend ahead with warming temperatures. It was milder this morning with a veil of high clouds overhead, and temperatures have fallen into the mid to upper 50s, and a south wind is picking up and gusting as high as 40 miles per hour. But a good day to be out on the area lakes. Afternoon highs will reach the upper 70s, but there's going to be more wind this weekend with considerable high cloudiness. Afternoon highs there will be reaching 80 degrees, and Easter egg hunts will have temperatures in the low 60s with a lot of cloud cover. There'll be some scattered strong severe storms 100 miles to the west of the Dallas-Fort Worth area, but they'll not make it to our area. We will have a very strong cap in place. So get ready to enjoy this weekend. It is going to be beautiful. I do want to thank all the supporters of Community Radio Networks. Huge thanks going out to Discount Power, Houston EB5, the Ahluwalia Law Offices, the Wyndham Hotel in Irving, Digital X-Force, Kinzer Law, My Kolachi, Ruchi Palace, Shri Vimal, Vimal's Venue, Eggholic, Mystic Mandala, and Flashbrush Productions. Also big thanks going out to all those who help out with community radio networks. And it was on today's date, way back in 1865, that the final campaign of the Civil War begins in Virginia, when Union troops under General Ulysses Grant move against the Confederate trenches around Petersburg. General Robert Lee's outnumbered rebels were soon forced to evacuate the city and begin a desperate race west. And that happened on today's date. The final campaign of the Civil War happened on today's date in the year 1865. And General George Patton's Third Army captures Frankfurt as Blood and Guts continues his march east. On today's date in 1945, that's the end of World War II, when Frankfurt am Main, literally on the Main River in western Germany, was the mid-19th century capital of Germany. It was annexed by Prussia, ending its status as a free city. And once integrated into a united German nation, it developed into a significant industrial city and hence a prime target for Allied bombing during the war. And that is Frankfurt. That bombing began in 1941 during a series of British air raids against the Nazis. But it was George Patton's army that captured Frankfurt on today's date, the 29th of March in 1945. He then crossed through southern Germany and into Czechoslovakia, only to encounter an order not to take the capital of Prague, as it had been reserved for the Soviets. Patton was not unexpectedly livid. And on the 29th of March in 1951, a homemade device explodes at the Grand Central Station in New York City, startling commuters but injuring no one. And in the next few months, 5 more bombs were found at landmark sites around New York, including the public library. Authorities realized that this new wave of terrorist acts was the work of the Mad Bomber. New York's first experience with the so-called Mad Bomber was in 1940, when a pipe bomb was left in the Edison building with a note that read, "Con Edison crooks, this is for you." More bombs were recovered in 1941, each more powerful than the last, until the Mad Bomber sent a note in December stating, "I will make no more bomb units for the duration of the war." He went on to say that Con Edison, New York's electric utility company, would be brought to justice in due time. But it was the Mad Bomber that struck in New York on today's date, the 29th of March in 1951. The police had no luck finding him, but an investigative team working for Con Ed finally tracked him down. Looking through their employment records, they found that George Peter Metesky had been a disgruntled employee since an accident in 1931. He was enraged that Con Ed refused to pay disability benefits and resorted to terrorism as his revenge. A rather mild-mannered man was found living with his sisters in Connecticut, sent to a mental institute where he stayed until his release in 1973, and he died in 1994. But it was him, the Mad Bomber, who struck in New York on today's date in 1951 at the Grand Central Station. And in one of the most sensational trials in American history, Julius and Ethel Rosenberg are convicted of espionage for their role in passing atomic secrets to the Soviets during and after World War II. The husband and wife were later sentenced to death and executed in 1953. The conviction was the climax of a fast-paced series of events that was set in motion with the arrest of British physicist Klaus Fowlkes in Great Britain. And British authorities, with assistance from the US FBI, gathered evidence that he worked on developing the atomic bomb both in England and the US during World War II, and had passed top-secret information to the Soviet Union. He almost immediately confessed his role and began a series of accusations. And it was Julius and Ethel Rosenberg who are convicted of espionage on today's date in 1951, and their case garnered worldwide attention. Their supporters claimed they were being scapegoats to the Cold War hysteria that was sweeping America, and it was the French writer and philosopher Jean-Paul Sartre called their execution a legal lynching. Others pointed out that even if they did pass secrets to the Soviets during World War II, Russia had been an ally, not an enemy of the U.S. at that time. And those who supported the verdict insisted that the couple got what they deserved for endangering national security by giving top-secret information on a devastating weapon to communists. And On the 29th of March in 1958, it was Dr. Charles David Keeling who began regularly measuring the amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere from the Mauna Loa Observatory in Hawaii. Over the ensuing years, his research will reveal what is now known as the Keeling curve, a graph of continuously taken measurements showing the rapid accumulation of carbon dioxide. Previously, scientists had not regularly measured the amount of carbon dioxide in the Earth's atmosphere, but as part of the International Geophysical Year, an international scientific project that took place there, receiving funding to conduct monitoring at the Mauna Loa and at the South Pole. We have this on a micro level, that the curve zigzags due to imbalance in the amount of vegetation in the northern and southern hemispheres. And the recognition of this fact made it possible for him, one of the earliest and most important steps in mankind's awakening to the reality of climate change was on today's date in 1958. Lieutenant William Calley is found guilty of premeditated murder at My Lai by a U.S. Army court-martial at Fort Benning in Georgia. A platoon leader, he had led his men in a massacre of Vietnamese civilians, including women and children, at My Lai 4, a cluster of hamlets in Cang Ngai province, and that happened in 1968. But he was found guilty of premeditated murder on today's date in 1971. Found guilty of personally murdering 22 civilians and sentenced to life imprisonment. But his sentence was reduced to 20 years by the Court of Military Appeals and further reduced later to 10 years by the Secretary of the Army. Proclaimed by much of the public as a scapegoat, he was paroled in 1974 after having served about a third of his 10-year sentence. 29th of March in 1973, 2 months after the signing of the Vietnam Peace Agreement, the latest U.S. combat troops leave South Vietnam as Hanoi frees many of the remaining American prisoners of war held in North Vietnam. America's direct 8-year intervention in the Vietnam War was at an end. In Saigon, some 7,000 U.S. Department of Defense civilian employees remained behind to aid South Vietnam in conducting what looked to be a fierce and ongoing war with communist North Vietnam. But it was in 1973, on today's date, the 29th of March, that the last U.S. combat troops leave South Vietnam. The unmanned U.S. space probe Mariner 10, launched by NASA in 1973, becomes the first spacecraft to visit the planet Mercury, sending back close-up images of a celestial body usually obscured because of its proximity to the Sun. Mariner 10 had visited the planet Venus 8 weeks before, but only for the purpose of using Venus's gravity to whip it towards the closest planet to the Sun. In 3 flybys of Mercury, the NASA spacecraft took detailed images of the planet and succeeded in mapping about 35% of its heavily cratered moon-like surface. Mercury, ladies and gentlemen, is the smallest planet in the solar system and completes its solar orbit in only 88 Earth days. Data sent back by Mariner 10 discounted a previously held theory that the planet does not spin on its axis. In fact, the planet has a very slow rotational period that stretches over 58 Earth days. Mercury is a waterless, airless world that alternates bakes and freezes as it slowly rotates. Highly inhospitable, its surface temperature varies from 800 degrees Fahrenheit when facing the sun to minus 279 degrees when facing away, and the planet has no known satellites. The U.S. space probe Mariner visited Mercury on today's date, the 29th of March, in the year 1974. And on the 29th of March in 1982, 19-year-old North Carolina freshman Michael Jordan makes a 16-foot jump shot with 15 seconds left to give the Tar Heels a 63-62 win over Georgetown for the NCAA tournament championship. To tell the truth, Jordan tells reporters in New Orleans afterwards, "I didn't see it go in. I didn't want to look." The winning shot cements Jordan in the national consciousness, and he goes on to become one of the greatest basketball players in history, winning 6 NBA titles with the Chicago Bulls. After his basket, Georgetown's Fred Brown quickly brought the ball up court, but his pass to a teammate instead went to North Carolina's James Worthy, clinching the win for North Carolina. "I knew it was bad as soon as I let it go," he told reporters. And even though only a freshman, Michael Jordan showed the confidence that would be a trademark of his career. I was thinking the game might come down to a last-second shot, he said. I saw myself taking it and hitting it. Georgetown was led by 7-foot center Patrick Ewing, who led all scores with 28 points, and coach John Thompson, one of the best college basketball coaches of all time. He and North Carolina coach Dean Smith, also among the sport's top coaches of all time, were fast friends. The two embraced after the game. And in the 1984 NBA draft, it was Michael Jordan selected by the Bulls with the 3rd overall pick. The next year, Ewing was the number 1 overall pick of the New York Knicks. As a Bull, Jordan would go torment Ewing and the Knicks, often blocking their road to an NBA championship. But it was on today's date that this 19-year-old North Carolina freshman, Michael Jordan, makes that 16-foot jump shot with 15 seconds left to give the Tar Heels that 63-62 win over Georgetown for the NCAA tournament championship. Some stories from the annals of history that happened on today's date, the 29th of March. And the movie releasing from Bollywood today is called Crew, where circumstances lead these 3 hustlers to a gold smuggling racket. It's all fun and games until conscience comes calling. Girls gotta have some fun, and Bollywood is finally listening. Co-workers Geeta Sethi, played by Tabu, Jasmine Kohli, played by Kareena Kapoor Khan, and Divya Rana, played by Kriti Sanon, serve these looks and then some hospitality to the passengers of Kohinoor Airlines. And the undisputed drama queens have their own battles to fight and lies to hide. Nothing unites employees more than their collective misery, and that forges an unlikely bond between the 3 air hostesses. When they discover that their debt-ridden airline is on the verge of bankruptcy, the women are compelled to seek desperate measures for survival. Necessity is the mother of invention and sometimes even crime. Crew has that smooth takeoff, boasting of a terrific first half and a bumpy landing. The fast-paced comic thriller entertains at all times, even when the climax gets too convenient, ditzy, or far-fetched. The heist bit isn't clever and doesn't pretend to be clever either, which works. Humor stems from the characters' unabashed, unapologetic approach to life without thinking it through. And their plans are as effective as Vasco da Gama ki gun of Andaz Apna Apna. And yet they exude the style and attitude of ramp models. Their sheer obliviousness evokes laughter as you submit yourself to their world of ambition, fading vanity, and delusion. Caught in a crossfire between needs, wants, and morals, despite its frothy exterior, Crew has an interesting take on the upper middle class and their relationship with money, ethics, and a dead-end job that enslaves them for life. Aadarsho se bil nahi bharte. And speaking of the ladies, Crew's leading actresses are in their 30s, 40s, and 50s, respectively. And casting hasn't looked this fun for an Indian all-female heist film in a long time. Beyond the organic age inclusivity, the story doesn't digress from the ladies, even with men as entertaining as Diljit Dosanjh and Kapil Sharma around. Kulbhushan Kharbanda also features in a special appearance, and none of the male characters are inconsequential, despite their brief screen time as seen in most chick flicks. While all 3 bring their A-game, Tabu and Kareena exude bona fide movie star energy to show how it's done. Diljit was right when he said, Hogi Rihanna, Hogi Beyonce, Sadita hai Kareena. Bebo oozes oomph and substance as a hustler who conceals her loneliness, torn between responsibilities and desires. Tabu is terrific. The 2 are electrifying on screen with characters distinctly written for each. The 2 even crack age-related jokes that we are sure resonate with them. Kriti adds to the chutzpah and has great chemistry with Diljit, but feels more like a third-wheeler. The latter makes a charming impression. He gives the film its best laugh-out-loud moment when he asks Kriti, "Tumne mujhe Instagram pe follow back kyun nahi kiya?" If you're looking for some light-hearted madcap comedy, ladies and gentlemen, the movie Crew is worth diving into with all its frivolity, humor, and glam. And you can see it at your close-by AMC as well as Cinemark theaters. And don't forget, today and tomorrow we have the Holistic Festival, a 2-day market over this Easter weekend at the Cotton Mill in McKinney, where they have yoga, Ayurveda, herbs, meditations, psychic readers, aromatherapy, skincare. We do also have energy workers, medical professionals, tarot card readers, massage therapists, dancers, crystal and healing, art goods, plenty happening out there with live painters also for For more information, you can call Vijay. His number is 972-750-1419. And this happening today as well as tomorrow at the Cotton Mill, McKinney. Thrive Kids Foundation are having their Autism Spectrum Frontiers, advancing knowledge in diagnosis, treatment, and prevention of autism. This event is happening at the Collin College Conference Center on Wade Boulevard in Frisco. And it will have the Healthcare Professional Conference from 8 to 1 on Saturday, the 6th of April, and from 2 to 4, a panel discussion for the community. The Success Door, supporting the Pledge Campaign Foundation, is presenting Fly, First Love Yourself Showcase Season 4 at the Dew Event Center on Saturday, the 6th of April from 4 to 8. And Tips 5K or 10K run or walk is happening on Sunday, the 7th of April at the Oak Point Preserve on Spring Creek Parkway in Plano at 8 o'clock in the morning, and online registration is required. Beginning this year, TIPS NEC, the Northeast chapter, inaugurating a mentorship program to help students of Indian and South Asian origin for medical students in the North Texas region and graduates of Indian medical schools who are looking for residency positions, fellowships, clinical and research observerships, and jobs. You can send an email to mentorship@tipsnec.org. Color Me Safe Foundation is a family crisis management organization serving the greater Dallas area, and the foundation's mission is to empower families regardless of background or economic means by providing guidance, solutions, and education related to child welfare. They've launched 2 new educational initiatives, Ask Auntie and Sathi Support Group, through discussion on topics such as generational and cultural gaps, cultural identity, mental health, bullying, and many more. These programs seek to empower South Asian children and families with the tools and understanding to overcome these shared challenges in a supportive and non-judgmental space. And you can contact colormesafefoundation.org. You've marked the 8th of April for the solar eclipse, and we'll have more details of that coming up for you. But please mark that on your calendars. We'll have almost 4 minutes of darkness in the middle of the day around 1 o'clock in the afternoon. The U.S.-India Chamber of Commerce inviting local graduate and undergraduate students compete in their Foundation Spirit of Innovation competition. It's happening on Friday, the 12th of April. It's the business plan presentation, and these innovative students are going to be there, so we need to show them support at the Brookhaven College on Friday, the 12th of April, at the Brookhaven College and Farmers Branch from 9 to 1. You have more information at usicoc.org, U.S. India Chamber of Commerce. Vibha's 18th annual Kite Flying Festival is happening on the 13th of April from 3 to 8 at the Sound at Cypress Waters on Olympus Boulevard in Coppell. Dallas.vibha.org for more information on the Talent for a Reason out there, calling anyone who wants to dance, sing, do stand-up comedy, show a unique skill, or do martial arts, and any talent welcome. And so please join them on the community stage at the Sound Amphitheater in Coppell. 13th April from 3 to 8. Music That Feeds, a Hunger Mitao initiative, an evening of melody with a difference, happening on the 14th of April from 4 to 7 at UTD's Johnson Performance Hall. And on the 19th of April, you can celebrate diversity. It's Diversity Month in April, so join the Dallas Symphony Orchestra for a special pre-concert event celebrating the importance of diversity, inclusion, equity, and unity. It'll feature the community partners and friends who value inclusion and recognize the power of an organizational culture that respects, honors, and embraces people of diverse backgrounds, perspectives, and abilities. Celebrate Diversity Night, ladies and gentlemen, from 6 to 7 on the 19th of April at the Meyerson Symphony Center. It's a pre-concert event featuring performances, light snacks, and drinks, and the pre-concert event is free, but you must RSVP to attend. And following that, there will be a concert performance by Troupe Vertigo. Hyderabad Society of North Texas presenting their Eid picnic on Saturday, the 20th of April from noon to 6 at the Travick Pavilion in Grapevine. And for more information, you can call Muhammad Hamid at 469-544-4118. 8. Pratham's annual gala happening on Saturday, the 20th of April at the Omni Frisco Hotel with special guests. Vidya Vox, the YouTuber and singer, will be performing, and the keynote speaker is Krish Dhanam, also a well-known author. And we are thrilled to invite you to the 2024 Pratham Dallas Fort Worth Gala, an extraordinary evening dedicated to empowering children and young people in India to transform their lives and communities. At the Omni Frisco Hotel on Saturday, the 20th of April, and this year's gala theme, Changing Lives, Transforming Communities, will highlight that remarkable impact of Pratham's work in expanding access to quality learning opportunities. Healing the world through peace. Please join the Brahma Kumaris for World Meditation Hour, where they focus on sending thoughts of peace and healing for the whole world on Sunday, the 21st of April from 6:30 to 7:30. Zoom details and registration at bkrymeditation.us. And 360 shows, Diamond Productions and 24/7 Entertainment present Neetu Chandra as Umrao Jan Ada, a musical play in the Broadway style based on the novel written by Mirza Hadi Rusma. 26th and 27th of April, there are 3 shows, and the tickets are available at Ticketmaster.com. For the first time in American television history, PBS stations across the U.S. will show a new documentary film on Swami Vivekananda called America's First Guru, and that too a first by an Indian origin documentary filmmaker, and that will be happening in May. Please do mark that, and we'll have more details coming up. Badshah's Pagal Tour is coming to Dallas at the Curtis Culwell Center on the 14th of June, and Shreya Ghoshal live on Sunday, the 16th of June, also at the Curtis Culwell Center. Our thoughts today with those who are observing Good Friday and getting ready for the Easter weekend. And that, ladies and gentlemen, concludes our show for today right here on Community Radio Networks. And for those of you who'd like to reach me directly, my number is 214-675-1754.